I am apparently being honored as an innovator in winemaking and in diversity, equity, and inclusion. I've been very, very, very outspoken about diversity, equity, and inclusion because I want to bring diversity here to Gary Farrell and to Sonoma County and help to make, the industry more inclusive and bring equity. It's really important. It's one of my top priorities. So the Chardonnay is our 2018 Rocchioli Vineyard Chardonnay. You have Joe Rocchioli right behind you. Don't turn around and look at him just yet.
On a picture or in life?
No, it's a picture of him, but he passed away last August, end of August. He's also, in some ways, being honored at the auction as well because we did a collaborative lot with William Selliam and Rocchioli. So the three of us, contributed some wine to put together a 20-case auction lot, which is really, I think it's called The Legacy. No, I grew up in Pittsburgh, California. So that is, most people ask Pittsburgh, California, Pittsburgh without the H, and it is the Deep East Bay. That's what I call it. So it's about 35 minutes east of Oakland. It used to be that there was no BART station in Pittsburgh. We were that far. And then finally, I think it was in maybe 89 or 91, something like that, they finally added a Pittsburgh Bay Point stop, and now they've got one even further than that. I had no idea that I would ever end up in the wine industry. The only wine that we really had in the house when I was growing up was, maybe a box of wine in the refrigerator if my mom was going to be making wine coolers or something. Maybe every now and again, if somebody brought a bottle of wine, we'd have something in the refrigerator, but it was probably a bigger producer. So I didn't discover wine until I graduated from Cal Poly. I knew about wine, but when I say discovered wine, I mean real serious wine consumption. And when I graduated from Cal Poly and then worked at Amgen for a short minute in Thousand Oaks in biopharmaceuticals. I got bored. I applied to grad school, got accepted to UC Davis, spent a couple of years working on my doctorate in chemistry when I discovered the wine program, because as we all know, UC Davis, it has the viticulture and enology program. And so I met some graduate students who were in viticulture and enology, and there were about 12 graduate teaching assistants teaching general chemistry at UC Davis. And so we all got together to grade exams, and they started talking about their research, and I started talking about mine. And I realized that the foundations of the science that we were doing were basically the same. Same instrumentation, same statistics, same types of analysis. It's just that I was doing peptide synthesis and they were doing wine analysis and cancer therapeutics research, peptide synthesis and wine. And so I had already been to Burgundy, Bordeaux, and the Rhone Valley, and in France, and had already, had some great wines in my life. And so that's when I decided to switch, and that's how I ended up in wine. Worked at Joseph Phelps and stayed there for 10 years, and then I came here. Been here for 11 now. The stars literally aligned in that respect because they had they called him the research enologist at Joseph Phelps back in 2002. And he left to start his own wine program, I think, if I remember correctly. And I just happened to reach out to Joseph Phelps because I had done a tasting there with the Director of Winemaking at the time. And so I emailed him my resume and said, hey, if you have anything open, think about me for harvest or anything. And he wrote me back and said that they were looking to fill a position as a research chemist. They wanted somebody who was interested in Pinot Noir and Chardonnay because they had planted 100 acres of Pinot and Chardonnay out on the far west Sonoma coast. And they wanted somebody with a chemistry background. I have 21 vintages behind me. Or is it 22? I've lost count. It's 22. I have 22 vintages behind me. It's a lot of evolution, and it's really just mind-boggling to me to think that I just celebrated my 11th anniversary at Gary Farrell Winery 2 days ago, which is just crazy to me because I have to look at my ID sometimes. I pull out my ID and that's right.
Yeah.
So the evolution has taken place from my early years at Joseph Phelps Vineyards all the way through the harvest that I did in Burgundy in 2006. I worked at Domaine de Monty, gained a lot of, old school traditional winemaking experience, which I brought to California, trying to, make wines that are more site expressive. And I think that was kind of the key tipping point for me. Prior to that, my winemaking techniques were very kind of straightforward, typical, no whole cluster inclusion, not very much in the way of extended maceration or creative winemaking techniques like that. Then I went to Burgundy and I learned all kinds of really great techniques to apply to different vineyards depending on the qualities of the fruit at the time of harvest. And that's generally my philosophy. Everyone is different. Every clone is different. Every vineyard is different. So I treat them differently at harvest and at picking as well. Absolutely. We love to experiment here. And given that I am a scientist by training and that one of my earliest dates with my best friend when we were young teenagers, when we were about 13 or 14, I dressed up as a mad scientist and she dressed up as a gangster.
Nice.
So lab coat, little tray with test tubes in there, and I had the crazy wig on. So I've brought that through to the winemaking. So we do try to think outside the box and do some crazy things. In 2013, we did a really fun, I'm talking about this for a reason. In 2013, we did a fun skin fermented Chardonnay. Have you had a skin fermented Chardonnay or an orange wine ever?
I have had an orange wine. Yes.
Okay. So an orange wine is, a skin fermented white wine that's historically and traditionally done underground in a clay tank that's called an amphora. So what we did is just skin fermented the Chardonnay. We popped the heads off of some regular 60-gallon barrels, I think 6 of them. We stood them up on their heads upright like a little vessel and put the Chardonnay in there. Some of them we de-stemmed the fruit, and then the other 3 we left them whole clusters and just kind of let them ferment and let them sit there for up to 60 days.
Wow.
And so what you end up with is a Chardonnay that has some textures and flavors of similar to a red wine, but without the red color because they're white grapes. No, that was another experimental thing we did in 2016, I believe. We made a base for a Chardonnay base for sparkling wine. And then we decided not to do it because we didn't want to jump on the bandwagon when everybody else was just starting to make sparkling wine as well. Sure. We didn't want it to take away from the focus. Possibly. We make a beautiful rosé of Pinot Noir that I pick. It's what we call an intentional rosé, and we call it that because the grapes are picked at exactly the right sugar level for making rosé in our winemaking opinion. So pick it at a low sugar, put it in the press, and squeeze the juice out, and make it just like we would a Sauvignon Blanc in stainless steel. It's fresh and clean and bright and lively, and that could, if we do it right and decide we want to make a sparkling, it could be a base for a sparkling wine. Our website is www.garyfarrellwinery.com.
Great. Cheers.
Cheers again.